Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to another episode of Unmasking the Darkside. So today we're talking about the Jezebel Spirit of Control. Now, I've talked about Jezebel briefly in past episodes, but since I started this series on Unmasking the Darkside, I believe that the Jezebel Spirit has moved to the forefront. The Jezebel Spirit has outpaced the other demonic elements in our country, at least, of the United States of America, and possibly globally around the world. But I'm believing that I'm seeing here in America a definite upsurge and a takeover by the Jezebel Spirit. And what this boils down to is what we in the exorcism and demonology game, we call this manifesting. So this demonic spirit of Jezebel is currently manifesting like never before. I believe not since ancient times has this spirit become so powerful, especially in the nation of the United States of America. And so how do you know you're dealing with a Jezebel spirit? Who has the Jezebel spirit? Who doesn't have the Jezebel spirit? I believe the Jezebel spirit is definitely behind what we know as the Trump derangement syndrome, or TDS. Now, we really need to come up with a better name than this, and maybe we'll just call this the Jezebel Manifestation. Because this is occurring really from every angle. So it's not, the people on the left are definitely showing it more, but it's manifesting everywhere. Even in churches. And especially, I think, in churches, where oh, you're trying to get to me, are you? So sometimes the devil tries to shut you up by putting a cough in your throat or a tickle. And what I do is I just say, you're not stopping me. I just take a drink of water and keep on going. All right. So this Jezebel spirit is manifesting, I see, also in churches. There's this attitude that you can't leave our church. How dare you leave our church? One of the earmarks, if you're keeping notes, write this down. Earmark number 1 of the Jezebel spirit is a hyper reaction to being scorned. This stems from the old saying, hell hath no fury as a woman scorned. Now, what does scorned mean? Well, in that old saying, it means she liked you, she wanted to be with you, and you blew her off. You're like, nah, I don't like you that way, okay? So, rejection. So, anytime the spirit of Jezebel is rejected, it has a hyper reaction. It typically goes into full-on warfare mode. When Jezebel is rejected, for instance, at a church that you decide you don't want to go there anymore, and they tell you, you can't leave this church, who do you think you are? And then they slander your name all through the community. This is going on all over the place. I don't mean to just single out churches. I'm just saying that we've seen this Trump derangement syndrome, this Jezebel manifestation happening to the left, but it also happens on the right because it's not political. It just so happens that the devil has a stronger hold, I think, on people that are on the left side of things politically. So that's where we started to notice it first, is in this irrational behavior. So if you reject their ideology, their politics, that's scorning them. So they have that reaction. How dare you? I'm right. You have to join me now. Follow me. Blah. We're making fun of it right now, but when you're face to face with that kind of hatred, anger, and overreaction, it freaks you out. It makes you feel like your life's in danger. It makes you feel like you've awakened a demonic, evil entity and it's trying to eat you. Do. Why do I know so much about Jezebel spirit? Well, let's start with I'm delivered from it. How's that? That I was born into a Jezebel family ruled by the spirit of Jezebel, and it has a hold of all of the women in my family. Still does. I don't know that any of them are absolutely free. My mom's probably come the farthest at 85, almost 86 years old, but she still struggles with it. She's currently, I think, on the wrong side of my breakup. That's what happens in my family. Because they're all ruled by the spirit of Jezebel. When I break up with a woman in my life, every woman in my family sides with her, and I'm the dirtbag. No one's ever sided with me on any of my breakups. Just my bros, my buddies. But yeah, that's another thing with Jezebel spirit. People with the Jezebel spirit are drawn to each other. Now, that doesn't mean they get along. People who are under the Jezebel spirit that are drawn to each other also have this toxic relationship, whether they're romantically drawn to each other or politically or through their church or whatever. When you get this group that's not you ever see a knot of snakes when there's a flood down in Texas? It's flooding down in Texas. Yeah, you get down on them rivers like the Brazos, and you'll see a knot of moccasins just rolling in a ball down this flooded river. You know, they use each other to hold each other up and to survive they cling to each other. You know, and this is what Jezebel spirits do. They cling to each other. So if you get into one Jezebel spirit, they're likely going to have a lot of backup. And, you know, I have more than once in my life said the wrong thing in a group full of women, only to find myself backed into a corner by 5, 6, 7 women who are ready to barbecue me right on the spot because I said the wrong thing to the wrong woman. Now, some of you out there might say, well, that says more about you than them. That's exactly what a Jezebel would say. And, you know, this is not an attack on all women. Men have the Jezebel spirit just as much as women. The Jezebel spirit is only called that because it harkens back to an epic battle in the Old Testament between Jezebel and one of God's prophets known as Elijah. And here's how Elijah dealt with Jezebel. Once he identified her as a demonic spirit, as a power-hungry, control-hungry megalomaniac. You know, this idea that I can tell you what to do and you must obey. Okay? Now, I believe in true authority. True authority, I heard somebody, it might have been Tim Pool talking about authority recently. And, you know, he said, true authority is a doctor who grabs your hand and tells you, hold pressure on that wound. Not only is he the right person to tell you to do that, but it's a life and death thing and you agree with him because he's right. And so that's the way true authority should be. And so an example of godly authority would be our delegated authority, supposed to be godly authority in government. That should be godly. We're, you know, we're working on that right now, currently. But you know, and it's always been plagued. You know, authority corrupts. It can, and so a person who's in godly authority is a person who is like constantly asking themselves, the universe, God, whatever. Am I doing this right? Am I leading these people right? You know, the old Marine used to keep a little sign up on his pulpit taped down that only he could see. And it was a weird little statement that, unless you knew what he was talking about, wouldn't mean much to you. But it says, "What are you trying to do to these people?" with a question mark. Because he understood standing up there in that position of authority that he better be right. He better not just be wandering around through he better have a point. You know, he better have a contribution. He better be lined up with God's will. And so Jezebel comes in male and female varieties. It's, I think, a feminine demonic spirit. Yeah, they do come in feminine and masculine demonic spirits. I guess all demonic spirits are androgynous to some degree, but some fall one side of the masculinity line or the other. So Jezebel is typically feminine. So that's where people that are under the Jezebel spirit will exhibit some feminine. This is, I think, part of why the LGBTQ community is so involved in the Trump derangement syndrome, that they're right up there in it with. A lot of them are, a lot of them aren't. You know, I've met more moderate people who aren't freaked out by this in Texas. And I think part of it is if you've ever had a relationship with Jesus Christ and you really love God, regardless of your personal situation and where you are at in your walk right now, if that's ever been a part of you, it makes it much harder. It's making it much harder for the Jezebel spirit to really manifest. So, number one way to recognize a Jezebel spirit is you've scorned it or rejected it, and now it's attacking you. A lot of times, that's when we find out we're dealing with a Jezebel, is when we're on the receiving end of that blah, that blah. And you can see it in these protests, that blah, how dare you, that flare up. That's just, that manifestation is so clearly Jezebel. Now, how do you fight a Jezebel spirit? Well, we have to go back and look at how Elijah defeated Jezebel in this story in the Bible. He fled, man. He split up. He straight up split. He didn't fight her. Here's the thing. Fighting Jezebel is exactly what she wants. It's exactly what this demonic spirit wants. It wants a fight. It wants you. It is willing to show itself just to make you manifest your demon, right? Or to get you to agree with the dark side and to fight back and to be as ugly as she is. You'd be just as ugly as Jezebel is. That's what it wants. And when you do that, you will lose. You will always lose. You're a fool if you think you're going to win. You're going to lose. You're always going to lose. That's just all there is to it. You don't beat Jezebel by fighting her. Let me give you a case in point. I rejected my first wife during our breakup after 20 years of marriage, and she went full-blown Jezebel spirit on me. And she made false accusations against me that were based on nothing, zero, nada, okay? Completely fabricated, made up lies that were easily disprovable. That's another thing. Jezebel, when she's in this deal, Jezebel's whole goal is to get you to sin, is to get you to join them in this crazy behavior and to act just like them. Think about that. Any of you that have been to these protests know that that's the biggest thing you deal with is you want to fight back the way they're doing it. And you just want to right back at them, but you can't, because then that just validates their behavior, makes you just as bad as them. So Jezebel that's their main goal, is to draw you into the fight. So the way to beat Jezebel is to let them twist off while keeping your cool. It's so hard to do. This is what I did in my divorce with my first wife. She called me a terrorist. She made false accusations against me, said I was a wife beater, a child beater, all these horrible allegations against me. Meanwhile, while she's having a conniption fit one night while I'm packing my stuff out, she's manifesting demonically so bad with this Jezebel spirit that my young children go, "Daddy, we're afraid of her. We're going with you. We don't care what's right, what's wrong, or who says we want to go. We don't want to stay with her. She's nuts. We need to go with you." This is how I got custody of my kids, because she scared her own kids to death that night. And so, the Jezebel spirit will twist off and show their insanity. This is what Donald Trump, I think, has been pretty successful at doing. He has his moments where he tries to fight back. Hey, I'm Minnie Pearl. Check it out. I got my hat. I didn't see that on there. Just got this from Joe. But anyway, the Jezebel spirit wants you to fight back. And when you don't fight back, they just twist off deeper, like the Russian collusion thing. Oh, he's not just a Russian spy. He's Putin's lover. There was people out there saying Donald Trump and Putin were having sex together. Were they meaning it figuratively or literally? I don't know. The Jezebel spirit doesn't make any sense. If you just zip it, if you just cross your arms, if you just sit back and watch it from a distance and don't let it get to you, the Jezebel spirit will show itself, and then righteousness will arise. Let me say that again. The righteous will arise, and they can collectively defeat the Jezebel spirit once the Jezebel spirit shows its insanity. Then you must be insane too if you believe that person's not crazy. You see how by being calm? So what did Elijah do? Elijah fled to the wilderness. This is part of why I'm coming at you from my off-grid cabin instead of my van down by the river. You were waiting for that. I'm going to do it again. Coming at you from my van down by the river. Why am I here and not there? Because Jezebel is near that van down by the river. Now, I don't know that she's manifesting, but there's some Jezebels manifesting. That's all I'm going to say. So I did what Elijah did. I fled to the wilderness. And when you do that, God takes care of you. When you flee from Jezebel, when a righteous man flees from a Jezebel attack and shows restraint, God blesses him by taking care of him. He fed the prophet. And there are so many miracles associated with this time that Elijah hid in the wilderness. So what happened to Jezebel? Well, Jezebel began to rampage and became obsessed with Elijah. And, she had many atrocities committed. She twisted off hardcore. Everyone saw how insane she was. And eventually, the true king came back, took control of things, and he threw Jezebel off of a multi-story balcony to her death on the stones below. And just like the prophet Elijah said, the dogs drank her blood. It was just like he predicted. So Jezebel is defeatable, but not by acting like Jezebel, not by coming in hard against Jezebel. This is not how you defeat her. You defeat her by avoiding her, by keeping your cool, by letting her incriminate and damn herself to her own demise. And once again, Jezebel is not necessarily female. I'm not saying all women are Jezebels, and I'm not saying that all men aren't. In fact, there's a lot. In this current culture, there may be just as many male Jezebels as females, that it just doesn't matter. I think the common denominator is that the people that are really manifesting this just never got that close relationship with God, or they were never really honest with him. See, that's it. You can claim Jesus, but unless you repent, unless you're truly honest with God about who you are and what you've done and who you've hurt, unless you're willing to face that, you're never truly free of the act itself, of the sin from the past, until you tell the Creator what you did. He knows what you did. You just need to admit it. You're like the kid with his hand in the cookie jar going, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. It's not my hand in the cookie jar. Own it. Those of us that own it when we sin, I think we get a special protection against Jezebel. It's what drives her out. But if you never really repent, if you're never really honest about who you are, Jezebel probably dwells there. Especially in this world we live in today. The spirit of control, whether it's gun control, they're trying to control your land. They're trying to tell you nowadays you can't collect water from the rain and use it for household purposes, that rainwater collection is against the law now. They're telling you that, you can't build without a permit. You can't dig a well without their permission on your own property. You have to rent your property from the government and pay tax. All of this control over every aspect of humanity is a glaring piece of evidence that we are dealing with the Jezebel spirit. Get out of the city. Get out of the control of the Jezebel spirit. Get out of this beast system. Get out while you still can. If you keep laying down with Jezebel, you will become just like her. God save us all.